He knocked on the door. The door opened, but no one could be seen to open it. Pippin looked into a great hall. It was lit by deep windows in the wide aisles at either side. Beyond the rows of tall pillars that upheld the roof, monoliths of black marble, they rose to great capitals, carved in many strange figures of beasts and leaves, and far above, in shadow, the wide vaulting gleamed with dull gold, inset with flowing traceries of many colours. No hangings or storied webs, nor any things of woven stuff or of wood were to be seen in that long solemn hall. But between the pillars there stood a silent company of tall images graven in cold stone. Suddenly Pippin was reminded of the hewn rocks of Argonath, and awe fell on him as he looked down that avenue of kings long dead. At the far end, upon a dais of many steps, was set a high throne under a canopy of marble, shaped like a crowned helm. Behind it was carved upon the wall and set with gems an image of a tree in flower. But the throne was empty. At the foot of the dais, upon the lowest step, which was broad and deep, there was a stone chair, black and unadorned, and on it sat an old man, gazing at his lap. In his hand was a white rod with a golden knob. He did not look up. Solemnly they paced the long floor towards him, until they stood 3 paces from his footstool. Then Gandalf spoke.
Hail, Lord and Steward of Minas Tirith, Denethor, son of Ecthelion. I am come with counsel and tidings in this dark hour.
Then the old man looked up. Pippin saw his carven face with its proud bones and skin like ivory, and the long curved nose between the dark deep eyes. And he was reminded not so much of Boromir as of Aragorn.
Dark indeed is the hour,
said the old man, and at such times you are wont to come, Mithrandir. But though all the signs forebode that the doom of Gondor is drawing nigh, less now to me is that darkness than my own darkness. It has been told to me that you bring with you one that saw my son die.
Is this he? It is,
said Gandalf.
One of the twain. The other is with Theoden of Rohan, and may come hereafter. Halflings they are, as you see, yet this is not he of whom the omen spoke.
Yet a halfling still, said Denethor grimly, and little love do I bear the name, since those accursed words came to trouble our counsels and drew away my son on the wild errand to his death. My Boromir, now we have need of you. Faramir should have gone in his stead.
He would have gone,
said Gandalf.
Be not unjust in your grief. Boromir claimed the errand and would not suffer any other to have it. He was a masterful man, and one to take what he desired. I journeyed far with him, and learned much of his mood. But you speak of his death. You have had news of that ere we came.
I have received this, said Denethor, and laying down his rod he lifted from his lap the thing that he had been gazing at. In each hand he held up one half of a great horn cloven through the middle, a wild ox horn bound with silver.
That is the horn that Boromir always wore,
cried Pippin.
Verily,
said Denethor.
And in my turn I bore it, and so did each eldest son of our house, far back into the vanished years before the failing of the king, since Vorondil, father of Mardil, hunted the wild kine of Aror in the far fields of Rhûn. I heard it blowing dim upon the northern marches 13 days ago, and the river brought it to me, broken. It will wind no more.
He paused, and there was a heavy silence. Suddenly he turned his black glance upon Pippin.
What say you to that, halfling?
13 days,
faltered Pippin.
Yes, I think that would be so. Yes, I stood beside him as he blew the horn, but no help came. Only more orcs.
So, said Denethor, looking keenly at Pippin's face.
You were there?
Tell me more. Why did not help come?
And how did you escape, and yet he did not, so mighty a man as he was, and only orcs to withstand him?
Pippin flushed and forgot his fear.
The mightiest man may be slain by one arrow,
he said.
And Boromir was pierced by many. When last I saw him, he sunk beside a tree and plucked a black feathered shaft from his side. Then I swooned and was made captive. I saw him no more, and knew no more. But I honor his memory, for he was very valiant. He died to save us, my kinsman Meriadoc and myself, waylaid in the woods by the soldiery of the Dark Lord. And though he fell and failed, my gratitude is none the less.
Then Pippin looked the old man in the eye, for pride stirred strangely within him, still stung by the scorn and suspicion in that cold voice.
Little service, no doubt, will so great a lord of men think to find in a hobbit, a halfling from the northern shire, yet such as it is, I will offer it, in payment of my debt.
Twitching aside his grey cloak, Pippin drew forth his small sword and laid it at Denethor's feet. A pale smile, like a gleam of cold sun on a winter's evening, passed over the old man's face. But he bent his head and held out his hand, laying the shards of the horn aside.
"Give me the weapon,"
he said. Pippin lifted it and presented the hilt to him.
"Whence came this?"
said Denethor.
"Many, many years lie on it. Surely this is a blade wrought by our own kindred in the north in the deep past."
It came out of the mounds that lie on the borders of my country,
said Pippin.
But only evil wights dwell there now, and I will not willingly tell more of them.
"I see that strange tales are woven about you,"
said Denethor.
"And once again it is shown that looks may belie the man, or the halfling. I accept your service, for you are not daunted by words, and you have courteous speech, strange though the sound of it may be to us in the south. And we shall have need of all folk of courtesy, be they great or small, in the days to come. Swear to me now." "Take the hilt,"
said Gandalf,
"and speak after the Lord if you are resolved on this."
I am,
said Pippin. The old man laid the sword along his lap, and Pippin put his hand to the hilt, and said slowly after Denethor, "Here do I swear fealty and service to Gondor, and to the Lord and Steward of the realm."
Here do I swear fealty and service to Gondor, and to the Lord and Steward of the realm.
To speak and to be silent.
To speak and to be silent.
To do and to let be.
To do and to let be.
To come and go in need or plenty.
To come and go in need or plenty.
In peace or war, in living or dying.
In peace or war, in living or dying.
From this hour henceforth, until my Lord release me, or death take me.
From this hour henceforth, until my Lord release me, or death take me.
Or the world end.
Or the world end.
So say I.
So say I, Peregrine, son of Paladin, of the Shire of the Halflings.
And this do I hear, Denethor, son of Icthelion, Lord of Gondor, Steward of the High King, and will not forget it, nor fail to reward that which is given. Fealty with love, valor with honor, oath-breaking with vengeance.
Then Pippin received back his sword and put it in his sheath.
"And now,"
said Denethor,
"my first command to you. Speak and be not silent. Tell me your full tale, and see that you will recall all that you can of Boromir, my son. Sit now and begin."
As he spoke, he struck a small silver gong that stood near his footstool, and at once servants came forward. Pippin saw then that they had been standing in alcoves on either side of the door, unseen as he and Gandalf entered.
"Bring wine and food and seats for the guests,"
said Denethor,
"and see that none trouble us for 1 hour. It is all I have to spare, for there is much else to heed,"
he said to Gandalf.
"Much of more import it may seem, and yet to me less pressing. But maybe we can speak again at the end of the day, and earlier it is to be hoped,"
said Gandalf.
"For I have not ridden hither from Isengard 150 leagues with the speed of wind only to bring you one small warrior, however courteous. Is it not to you that Theoden has fought a great battle, and that Isengard is overthrown, and that I have broken the staff of Saruman? It is much to me, but I know already sufficient of these deeds for my own counsel against the menace of the East."
He turned his dark eyes on Gandalf, and now Pippin saw a likeness between the two, and he felt the strain between them, almost as if he saw a line of smouldering fire, drawn from eye to eye, that might suddenly burst into flame. Denethor looked indeed much more like a great wizard than Gandalf did, more kingly, beautiful and powerful, and older. Yet by a sense older than sight, Pippin perceived that Gandalf had the greater power, and the deeper wisdom, and a majesty that was veiled. He was older, far older.
How much older?
He wondered, and then he thought how odd it was that he had never thought about it before. Treebeard had said something about wizards, but even then he had not thought of Gandalf as one of them. What was Gandalf? In what far time and place did he come into the world, and when would he leave it? And then his musings broke off, and he saw that Denethor and Gandalf still looked at each other in the eye, as if reading the other's mind. But it was Denethor who first withdrew his gaze.
"Yea," he said, "for though the stones be lost, they say, still the lords of Gondor have keener sight than lesser men, and many messages come to them. But sit now."
Then men came, bearing a chair and a low stool, and one brought a salver with a silver flagon and cups and white cakes. Pippin sat down, but he could not take his eyes from the old lord. Was it so, or had he only imagined it, that as he spoke of the stones a sudden gleam of his eye had glanced upon Pippin's face?
"Now, tell me your tale, my liege,"
said Denethor, half kindly, half mockingly.
"For the words of one whom my son so befriended will be welcome indeed."
Pippin never forgot that hour in the great hall under the piercing eye of the Lord of Gondor, stabbed ever and anon by his shrewd questions, and all the while conscious of Gandalf at his side, watching and listening, and, so Pippin felt, holding in check a rising wrath and impatience. When the hour was over and Denethor again rang the gong, Pippin felt worn out.
It cannot be more than 9 o'clock,
he thought.
I could now eat 3 breakfasts on end.
"Lead the Lord Mithrandir to the housing prepared for him,"
said Denethor,
"and his companion may lodge with him for the present if he will. But be it known that I have now sworn him into my service, and he shall be known as Peregrine, son of Paladin, and taught the lesser passwords. Send word to the captains that they shall wait on me here, as soon as may be after the 3rd hour has rung. And you, my lord Mithrandir, shall come too, as and when you will. None shall hinder your coming to me at any time, save only in my brief hours of sleep. Let your wrath at an old man's folly run off, and then return to my comfort."
"Folly?"
said Gandalf.
"Nay, my lord. When you are a dotard, you will die. You can use even your grief as a cloak. Do you think that I do not understand your purpose in questioning for an hour one who knows the least while I sit by?"
"If you understand it, then be content,"
returned Denethor.
"Pride would be the folly that disdained help and counsel at need. But you deal out such gifts according to your own designs. Yet the Lord of Gondor is not to be made the tool of other men's purposes, however worthy. And to him there is no purpose higher in the world, as it now stands, than the good of Gondor. And the rule of Gondor, my lord, is mine, and no other man's, unless the king should come again."
"Unless the king should come again,"
said Gandalf.
"Well, my lord Stuart, it is your task to keep some kingdom still against that event, which few now look to see. In that task you shall have all the aid that you are pleased to ask for. But I will say this, the rule of no realm is mine, neither of Gondor nor any other, great or small. But all worthy things that are in peril as the world now stands, those are my care. And for my part, I shall not wholly fail of my task, though Gondor should perish if anything passes through this night that can still grow fair or bear fruit and flower again in days to come. For I also am a Stuart. Did you not know?"
And with that he turned and strode from the hall with Pippin running at his side. Gandalf did not look at Pippin or speak a word to him as they went. Their guide brought them from the doors of the hall and then led them across the court of the fountain into a lane between tall buildings of stone. After several turns they came to a house close to the wall of the citadel upon the north side, not far from the shoulder that linked the hill with the mountain. Within, upon the first floor above the street, up a wide carven stair, he showed them to a fair room, light and airy, with goodly hangings of dull gold sheen unfigured. It was sparely furnished, having but a small table, 2 chairs and a bench, but at either side there were curtained alcoves, and well-clad beds within with vessels and basins for washing. There were 3 high narrow windows that looked northward over the great curve of Anduin, still shrouded in mists, towards the Eminmuil and Rauros far away. Pippin had to climb on the bench to look out over the deep stone sill.
Are you angry with me, Gandalf?
He said, as their guide went out and closed the door.
I did the best I could.
You did indeed,
said Gandalf, laughing suddenly, and he came and stood beside Pippin, putting his arm about the hobbit's shoulders, and gazing out of the window. Pippin glanced in some wonder at the face now close beside his own, for the sound of that laugh had been gay and merry, yet in the wizard's face he saw at first only lines of care and sorrow, though as he looked more intently, he perceived that under all there was a great joy, a fountain of mirth enough to set a kingdom laughing, were it to gush forth.
Indeed you did your best,
said the wizard,
and I hope that it may be long before you find yourself in such a tight corner again between 2 such terrible old men. Still, the Lord of Gondor learned more from you than you may have guessed, Pippin. You could not hide the fact that Boromir did not lead the company from Moria, and there was one among you of high honor, who was coming to Minas Tirith, and that he had a famous sword. Men think much about the stories of old days in Gondor, and Denethor has given long thought to the rhyme and to the words Isildur's Bane since Boromir went away. He is not as other men of his time, Pippin, and whatever be his descent from father to son, by some chance the blood of Westerness runs nearly true in him, as it does in his other son, Faramir, and yet it did not in Boromir whom he loved best. He has long sight. He can perceive, if he bends his will thither, much of what is passing in the minds of men, even those that dwell far off. It is difficult to deceive him, and dangerous to try. Remember that, for you are now sworn to his service. I do not know what put it in your head, or your heart to do that, but it was well done. I did not hinder it, for generous deed should not be checked by cold counsel. It touched his heart, as well, may I say it, as pleasing his humour, and at least you are free now to move about as you will in Minas Tirith, when you are not on duty. For there is another side to it. You are at his command, and he will not forget. Be wary still.
He fell silent and sighed.